Hello there and welcome back to the second part of this series of videos on self-care using guided self-touch. If for whatever reason you're finding this video and you haven't seen part one, it's actually fine. You can do this one and then go do part one. Won't mess anything up. The main thing I just want to say to you before you try out the process that follows here is that you'll be guided through a series of movements, but more important than the movements is the quality of how you're relating to yourself. So you will be touching your body with your hands. And if you're the kind of person that sometimes you're a bit hard on yourself, maybe take this opportunity to use your hands to touch yourself in a way that you might touch another person you care about a lot. A spouse, your child, a good friend. So maybe take that attitude if that helps you, but also maybe think about what it means to give yourself that kind of touch, knowing that it's you you're taking care of today. To begin, lie on your back, make yourself comfortable, and just begin to become aware of how the weight of your body connects with the floor. Also become aware of the movement and the rhythm of your breathing. And finally, get a sense of how you relate to the space around you. This might mean that you try to feel the distance to the wall, to one side or to the other side. You try to feel how far away the ceiling is. And now, as you continue to rest, bring your attention to your hands. Just notice how you've chosen to arrange your arms and the way that your hands are oriented. Maybe one hand feels a little more open than the other one. Notice each of your fingers on each of your hands, and notice the spaces in between your fingers. And now, just like in part one of this process, place one of your hands on your belly, and then slowly move your hand up your belly until you come to your breastbone, and continue upwards. And the idea is you're sliding your hand in such a way that you're lifting it the least that you need to. When you get to the top of your breastbone, you reach across your chest to trace along the collarbone to your opposite shoulder. And you feel above or below the collarbone, you feel the shoulder, and then you just return. You come back along the collarbone to the top of the breastbone, slide your hand slowly down your breastbone to your belly, and then you place your hand on the floor. And then just do the exact same thing with your other hand. So take your time. But again, notice the quality of feeling in your hand. So even though you're moving your hand and you're so used to touching and inspecting things with your hands, think of your hand as being as soft as possible as you come up the breastbone, across the collarbone to the opposite shoulder, and you eventually come all the way back down to having your hand on your belly, and then you rest your hand on the floor. And then just pause here and see if the way that you're resting is somewhat shifted from when you began. And now take one of your hands and bring it to the top of your breastbone and move back and forth just as if you were beginning to go towards your shoulder along the collarbone, but just barely go to the collarbone and come back to the top of the breastbone. And use a fingertip to search around and see if you can find that little groove in between the top of your breastbone and your collarbone. It's the sternoclavicular notch. There's a little space that you can maybe find with your finger there. And when you find it, just keep your finger there for a moment. Again, making your hand as soft as you can. Listen to your breathing. And now, you're going to do a series of movements where you trace down the side of your breastbone. And you can just feel for yourself if you're going down the same side of the breastbone as the hand that you're working with, or if you're reaching to the other side, either is fine. But if you move down along one side of the breastbone, you'll feel a rib, and then you'll feel a space, and then you'll feel a rib, and you'll feel a space all the way down to the bottom of the breastbone. If you like, you can just gently sort of slide your finger all the way from the top of the breastbone down to the bottom along the border. But once you have a sense of the landscape here, come to the top of your breastbone again. And then look for the first space between two ribs that you can find. But still have your fingers snugged up right against the edge of the breastbone. And just one finger, and without any force, just think of moving the skin in a very small circle. While you're doing this, just pay attention to how you're gently stretching the skin as your finger moves in this tiny circle. You're always staying in between the two ribs. But after you've been doing this for a little while, just slowly slide your finger down over the rib below until you find the next gap between two ribs, and you're still right up against the edge of the breastbone, and you begin to make tiny circles here. And so, as you do this, be aware of your breathing. If you can, again, be aware of your contact with the ground below you, the space around the room, and feel the sensations that you're producing for yourself with these small movements. Take your finger down to the next gap between two ribs. Make the circles again. And even though these circles are very small, just allow yourself to also feel the whole circumference of your rib cage. Your fingers between two ribs on the side of the breastbone, but both of those ribs, they stretch all the way around you to the back and they connect into your spine. So you can also be looking for subtle sensations of changing pressure along your spine, somewhere behind where you're touching, how your back is relating to the floor. Move down again. And just do a few movements like this in each of the remaining spaces that you find between the ribs going down. Eventually you'll get to the bottom of the breastbone, and you have there some ribs that are connected not directly into the breastbone but into the cartilage. And you can just use this same idea, finding spaces between the ribs close to the center line, and come all the way down 3 or 4 or 5 little circles in each place. And when you've come to the bottom, simply rest your arm again on the floor. And take a minute here to appreciate what feels different on this side of your chest. How does the breath move through your body? How does this side of your back rest on the floor compared to the side where you haven't made these movements? And roll your head very gently on the floor, a little to the left, a little to the right. See if in this movement you feel some kind of difference side to side. Now, it could be interesting for you to stop here with this asymmetrical feeling, to stand up and walk around and just feel the difference between the two sides even in walking. But if you wish, you can also stay on the floor and you can simply repeat the process on the other side of your breastbone, maybe using your other hand, before you get up and continue with your day. I hope this was helpful to you. Take care.